And welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. If you are a returning guest, thank you. I truly appreciate it. But if you are new, and that's 95% of the people watching my videos right now, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and make sure that you hit that notification bell so that you are notified every time a new video is released. Now, I'm going to start off today with something a little more heartwarming. To me, it was a bit of a reminder about why we need to worry about the future of our country, why we need to worry about politics, and why this stuff should matter to us. But I saw this little kid, and it made me think of myself when I was a youngster. You know, I was always playing around heavy machinery. That's what my dad has done for his entire life. And look at the excitement on this little kid. They filled up his dump truck. Just a tiny little moment of happiness for this youngster by a road crew. That might inspire this kid to go on to he might be a heavy equipment operator. He might run his own contracting company. He might have his own excavating business. He might go on to be massively successful because he has a passion for something and because we left him with a country where he is capable of doing that. And we are rapidly moving in a direction where that's going to become more and more difficult for young little startups like that little whippersnapper there. But I saw it and I was like, you know what? That's really what we're doing this for. That's really why we care about the future of our country. And we have modes to do that. One is the ballot box. Another is the First Amendment, which is what I'm exercising every time I fire up this camera and a microphone. But the election, that's where the average American, where most people are going to actually make a difference. And yeah, it's easy for us to say, that's elections, not elections. We shouldn't be involved. I don't even want to get involved in it because it's stressful, this, that, and the other. But we are doing this. It's important that we come out in massive numbers to cast our ballot to make sure that we are voting, at least making our effort to vote for the person who has our country's best interest at heart and who can set the conditions for the next generation to be successful. But there are people trying to undermine that. There are people who, they prefer the selections, not the elections. The Democrat Party comes to mind with what they did with Kamala Harris, who they just slipped in there after Joe Biden had gotten all of the primary votes. And they said, well, we're just going to select her instead of the person that the people actually voted for and not hold an open primary where people can vote for somebody else. But this is in Pennsylvania. And the Republican National Committee has filed suit in the Common Pleas Court of Montgomery County, alleging that Montgomery County Board of Commissioners have commenced the 2024 general election without completing the required testing per the election code. Now, you might think this is, okay, why in the world do I care about the testing of the ballots? Because this involves the ballot format, the layout, the appropriate locations for folds on the ballots, all of these things that can impact the ability to count those ballots. And what they have said now is, well look, you already cast ballots. This is illegal because it hasn't met with state law, which we know that Pennsylvania isn't necessarily worried. A lot of these counties aren't really worried about state law, and the state's not going to enforce it. But nonetheless, this is what people like Jack Posobiec and other folks are now calling them out for, saying, hey, look, you guys have certain requirements. It's called LNA testing. And that LNA testing is to make sure that everything is able to go into the machine, be counted, that everybody is listed that's supposed to be listed. Well, they just fired it out to the general public. And now they have to retroactively go in and say, well, we got to have a plan to hand count these ballots because we don't know that they're going to be read by the machine. We know that these were ballots not cast in accordance with state law. There's all kinds of issues that could come because of this, but they just went ahead and fired it out anyway. And I think that there's going to be more and more things like this where they are going to try to create concerns, questions in the backs of people's minds on Election Day, because we don't know how many of these ballots went out. We don't know how many other states or how many other cities are sending out their ballots. You know, the county election commissions, are they sending out, is this happening in other states where they're sending out ballots that haven't gone through the proper testing that are going to be contentious when they actually come back, and that's going to prolong Election Day? They're doing whatever they can to basically prep the American people for issues and delays after the election. Well, you can do it in Brazil, can have the results of their election in one night, but for some reason, the most powerful, wealthy country in the world can't. And that's intentional, because anytime that there's delays, that opens up the opportunity for nefarious activity. Now, we're seeing this in other states as well. So not this exact instance, but They have been combing through, some of these states have been combing through their voter rolls. And listen to this. This was recent. This is part of a review. By the way, this is what bugs me. This was in 2020. This was in 2024. But the thing that they are trying to resolve is the 2020 election. We are 4 years after the 2020 election, and we are still finding out information about the botched voter rolls and all of these things. Listen to this.
42,000 people in Nevada voted more than once, according to your work in this. 42,000 people. 1,500 people voted in Nevada that were dead. 19,000 people voted though they did not live in Nevada and they weren't a college student. 8,000 people voted from a non-existent address. 15,000 people voted though they were registered to a commercial address or a vacant address, and 4,000 people voted in Nevada that are non-citizens. My question to you is, in my state, when someone votes twice, and we do have that occasionally, and about 50 times a year that actually occurs in our state, we prosecute individuals that vote twice. Of this 130,000 instances that you have identified from the 2020 election in Nevada, do you know of any prosecutions currently going on in Nevada for any voter fraud?
Not yet, Senator.
Okay, so no prosecutions up to this point, but 130,000. That's insane. 42,000 people. I'm going to repeat these numbers. 42,000 people voted more than once. 1,500 people that were dead. 19,000 didn't live in Nevada. 8,000 voted from a non-existent address. 15,000 registered to a commercial address, and 4,000 were illegal aliens. No prosecutions. Now, you might have heard the SAVE Act. You know, that was something that was being pitched here recently, attached to the latest CR. You know, the latest continuing resolution. That we got to pass the SAVE Act, the SAVE Act, the SAVE Act. Let me ask you something. The SAVE Act which is all for, because obviously I'm all for election integrity. Why is it that Mike Johnson waited until literally the 11th hour? We are 44 days, I believe, away from the election. Why is it that just now we are getting around to passing some sort of voter law? Because it's not going to be in place by the time the election comes around. It's not going to be effective by the time the election comes around. That it's probably, a lot of people speculate that it's actually going to get stripped out before the CR moves forward. They're going to pull that out anyway. So people are making a big kerfuffle about some of the conservatives inside of the Republican Party saying, well, no, I'm not going to vote for another continuing resolution. People like Thomas Massey. And they got lambasted for it. But all because of a law, the SAVE Act, that was going to go in place that's not even going to be in effect for this next election. They waited till the 11th hour. The government can't get anything done in 2 months. Absolutely nothing. Look at this one.
2021, Governor Stitt's office says election officials have removed 453,000 names from the rolls. That breaks down to 97,000 deceased voters, 5,600 felons, 15,000 duplicate registrations, and 195,000 who were removed because they failed to verify their address. Over the last 3 years, officials have also removed 144,000 voters who moved out of state. Thanks to new legislation approved by lawmakers, those voters can be removed as soon as they put down roots in a new state.
We're now able to remove voters automatically if we receive notification from another state that they've surrendered their driver's license in another state.
Okay, this is great. This is really good. But again, this is 11th hour action. We're 4 years after the most contentious election in I won't say in American history necessarily, but most definitely in my lifetime. The most contentious election. We're 4 years later, and here we are less than 2 months out, like 6 weeks out from the next election, and they're just now taking action. This stuff is just now coming to light. But if you wonder how the 2020 election went, you've got states removing 400,000 people from their ballots, other states with 200,000, 100,000. And these are in states that were lost by 10, 15, 20,000 votes. It's wild that we let it get this bad. Because, look, we know that any and all attempt will be made to take this election. I'm going to give you a flashback here. This is just to refresh everybody's brain, why this is important. This is a flashback to election night 2020. Oh, it was actually the election. I think it was the day after. Watch this.
1,000 votes. 138,000 was it, Tim?
Yeah, 138.
138,000. You see the same. And see, look, this makes no sense. This is not even statistically possible where you have linear movement along voting like this. So you have a skyrocket. It should have been moving
Now the
along.
argument is these are votes that came in, and they all came in at once. But the thing that's the irony of it, every last one of them broke for Biden.
There was not a Trump vote in there. They all vote, and you do not have a place in any state. Maybe Dixville's Notch, where there were 5 voters at the first thing, and they all 5 voted for Biden. Maybe there, but not when you have something of 138,000. You don't all break that way, and it still shouldn't be linear because you have so many counters that are counting across the way that they're all tallying and reporting, and you don't bunch them in and report one thing. So that doesn't look right for the process. It certainly does not look right for the fact that there is no place of 138,000 where you don't have both candidates represented. I mean, even the bluest city, you're still going to have somebody voting for the other party. And so these two things, it would not be a tight race right now had this not occurred. And this looks like it occurred maybe 4:30 in the morning. This is about 6:30 in the morning.
6:23 a.m.
There you go.
Here.
Well, 6:23 here.
There.
Yeah,
Yeah,
looks like about 4:30 maybe that it shot up here. So those are the two charts. And now you hear that Nevada has shut down. They're suddenly not counting anymore. So there's some crazy stuff going.
If you had to make a prediction of why would they stop counting in Nevada? I mean, people at home are trying to figure out what? It's the middle of the day. Why would you even stop?
That's what's inexplicable by all logical, by all political counts.
And this stood, by the way. So those spikes that he was just highlighting, those stood. If you look at it's what we're reporting today. That's what we see as just how it went. So when people give us a hard time for being paranoid about this next election, we have every reason to be paranoid. Every reason in the world to be paranoid. So many people have forgotten that. Those spikes, in fact, it's become a meme online. The Biden presidency, they're putting these banners up, and that's representing the Biden presidency, that arc, and then those spikes overnight in places like Wisconsin and Michigan. They will try whatever they can, but if we come out in the right numbers, then we will, I believe wholeheartedly that Donald Trump will win, and I believe that it will be in numbers far greater than they can produce through cheating. Because we have to avoid presidencies like the one that we have now. I mean, if you want to talk about Kamala Harris is a continuation of the Joe Biden presidency, and right now the Joe Biden presidency has the first lady taking cabinet meetings. This is the first, look, people, I'm going to play the video, but this is the first lady. Let me put it this way. Tom Brady wasn't backed up by Giselle when he was playing. Now, I'm not going to compare Joe Biden to Tom Brady by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, just because she's the first lady doesn't mean she's qualified to take on a cabinet meeting.
Talked about the fact that sometimes the White House, in her words, surprises you. And for somebody who has worked on women's health issues for her whole career, frankly, as a teacher, but also as the second lady and now as the first lady, she said one of the things that struck her the most was the inequities in medical research, funding for medical.
So MSNBC, by the way, and the only reason I played the audio for that is because they just continued as if this was fine, as if this was completely normal. That the first lady takes the first cabinet meeting in 11 months, and it's no big deal. Now, here's a couple ways to think about this. Let me give you a couple of, y'all can tell me what you think. But first off, our suspicions are confirmed. Joe Biden is not in charge, and he is completely checked out. And we know that's been the case for a long time, but when he turns over the cabinet meeting to the first lady, as opposed to taking it himself, just 44 days from being voted out of office, but he's still several months away. I mean, it'd be in January, until Inauguration Day, he's still sitting as the president of the United States. That Joe Biden is obviously running the country. That's the only thing that we can assume from this one. Second off, these people are deeply unserious about the duties of the president. Oh, I mean, because they're just brushing this off. Oh, it's just a cabinet meeting. All of his senior advisors, it's just a cabinet meeting. And people I can only imagine behind the scenes are saying, Think about how good this will look to have a woman running the meeting. Like this becomes an optics game at this point. It's proof also that it's a dog and pony show, but it's all setting the stage for optics. They want to have the optics of a woman running a cabinet meeting, maybe so they can start preparing people to see that with a Kamala Harris presidency, which, heaven help us if that's the case. Because they have the option to not have this meeting at all. If Joe Biden is completely checked out, what's the purpose in them having the meeting? The American people aren't going to know that this meeting didn't happen. The media is not going to say anything about a meeting not happening. Is it written into law? Somebody might know out there that it's legally, there's a legal obligation for the president to have an annual cabinet meeting. But I'd ask the question, why in the world have it at all? They don't seem to mind about the laws in other instances. Why a cabinet meeting? I believe this, and this is purely speculation, but I believe that this is just strictly optics. This was an optics opportunity, maybe to kind of check a box for Jill Biden, as a reward for running the president. She just wants to get people clapping. You saw all the cabinet members clapping for her. That this is a strictly narcissistic move. And she's like, I want to be seen at the head of the table. Before this whole thing comes crumbling to the ground, I want to show myself at the head of the table so that there's an image of me actually leading this country and leading the people and leading the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It could be. I mean, you could go even. My conspiratorial brain went in a lot of places. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the stuff with the occult, but the occult, and in particular the higher level occult people, like World Economic Forum folks, there's a guy that did a documentary on them, and it says that they have a certain code that they live by where they have to tell people what they are doing. And so this is just part of the rich little tapestry of them telling their story about, hey, we're going to, whether you want it or not, we're going to have a female in office, a female as president. And it's kind of predictive programming for having a Kamala Harris type figure in there. I was like, I don't know why, because I have to dig deep on it. I don't know why else they would have this cabinet meeting and put her at the head of it. It's wild. It's really, really wild. Now, I'll give you another example of why it's important for us to, I'm not going to play the whole video, but why this is important for us to be cautious with who we are putting into office and veer as far away from the deep state as humanly possible, because we have to remember back to COVID, right? What was it like during COVID? The people that were running our lives, dictating our lives, and really taking some massive unconstitutional actions to limit our freedoms and liberties. And this guy, Dr. Jay Varma, was one of them. And kudos to Club Undercover. So Steven Crowder has been doing some amazing undercover work. This guy, holy moly. So let me read off some of I'll read this to you first before I show it. Actually, is this the whole video? No, this is only a 2-minute clip. Here, this is a mashup. Let me show you this video real quick.
Convince the mayor to make it a mandate.
Like New York City found out that you were having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been a big deal. Yeah, it would have been real bad. We went to some underground dance party underneath a bank in Wall Street. And we were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everybody's high. And I was so happy because I hadn't done that in a year and a half, a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, I wonder if he sees me looking differently. Because this was not COVID friendly. The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every now and then. You know, kind of sneaky about it because hotels didn't want people gathering there. Because I was running the entire COVID response for the city. My wife and I had one with our friends, in August of that first summer. So we rented a hotel. It was fun. We all took Molly, and it was 8 or 9 of us and 8 to 10 of us in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was so pent up because it had been everybody was just stuck together and stuff like that. Yeah. And sometimes it isn't so much about imagery, some of it's just something about bodies being close to each other, just being naked with friends.
Was that when everybody was locked down?
It was the summer of 2020. So walk around the streets and eat outdoors.
Did you have any mandates in place?
There wasn't any restrictions on gathering, you could actually gather people. The hotels didn't want us to have parties, but they weren't gonna
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's because because I did all this like deviant, like sexual stuff while I was like, like on TV and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, actually, I'm like really like I love being my authentic self.
So this is a guy who was putting in COVID restrictions in New York. He was leading the way, and he's talking about having these drug-fueled sex parties in New York. And he was perfectly okay with it. He has no lapse in his conscience about that. He doesn't even take. He's like, oh, I hope nobody sees me. But yeah, of course I know that I'm locking people in their homes. I know that I'm responsible for people losing their jobs, making it difficult for them to maintain employment if they don't take this experimental pharmaceutical product. And yet I'm going to go off and have drug-fueled sex parties across New York. People, we are 100% fighting against authoritarianism. We saw it in COVID and how quickly we forget that is the most locked down places in this country were the Democrat cities. This is the MO for the Democrat Party. It's about control. It's about manipulation of people. And when you have folks like this, their moral compass is so screwed that I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised that they can find their way to the bathroom in the morning. I mean, there's a whole thing. You can go to, if you follow Steven Crowder, if not, if you go find Steven Crowder, you can watch the whole video. And they go through a long, drawn-out conversation where he goes really into detail. But he's talking about how, I have to be able to do this. See, this is the way they look at it. He said, I wouldn't be able to do this job for the city if I didn't have some way to blow off steam. I don't care about the bricklayers. I don't care about the plumbers or the electricians or the people in the churches or the people who are, do it. No, that doesn't bother me. Their jobs are meaningless. They'll be fine in their house. But me, I'm a big, important city guy. I'm a big, important leader in this community. I have to be able to blow off steam. So I need it should be my right to go out and take Molly, which is, Molly, ecstasy, all that stuff. Go get into a room with 8 or 10 other naked people and have orgies. That's what he believes. That's how he blows off steam. He should be allowed to do that. Do you get the hypocrisy here? This is what we are up against. Aside from it being just absolutely morally repugnant. Wow. And, I think to convince people about, I guess, the nefarious nature of politics, this is how I'm going to show you this example. I'm doing a terrible job of segueing in this one, but Charlie Kirk, I don't know if you know who Charlie Kirk is, but he was having a discussion. It was actually him and Vivek Ramaswamy were having a discussion with this girl. And she's a typical leftist. She doesn't really understand the policy prescriptions. All she knows is that Donald Trump is bad. Donald Trump is Hitler. She doesn't like his policies, though she can't name a single policy. And Vivek did a great job. Like he was super kind, was saying, look, I get it. Let's get past the ad hominem attacks and let's talk about substance here. And the reason I'm not playing the whole video is because it is pretty long. It's like 6-minute video. Well, as soon as she gets tagged, or not tagged, but cornered by the discussion, look what she does. I'm going to fast forward to the point. This is like okay, here you go. You can see that they have blurred this out. Right there. So you see this blur right across her bosom right there. What these kids do is they will actually pull out some of their body parts that aren't allowed to be shown in an effort to just try to get the entire video banned from YouTube. The same thing would happen during Antifa. I've heard people say that they were playing unlicensed music over the loudspeakers so that when they were doing a coverage of the Antifa riots, you couldn't show any of the audio from it. You could show the video, but you couldn't show the audio, so that you couldn't hear the things that they were saying. They were playing unlicensed music. But this girl is so out of touch with reality that as opposed to having a logical conversation with Charlie Kirk, she pulls out a part of her body to try to expose it just to get the video banned from YouTube. That's what it's like having a conversation with these folks. They are not interested in conversation. They're interested in censorship. And this is what we are fighting against. This is what Donald Trump is fighting against. This is what Donald Trump has been experiencing for, the past decade. Well, longer, since 2016. These kids have become malleable, and they are malleable to the point, that was very loud, malleable to the point that there are, some people compare this to the color revolution, but, kids storming facilities in support of international terrorist organizations in places like New York. It's about sowing discord. It's about sowing, social anxiety and fear. This is what they're doing. Who is doing this? Well, aside from the media, which the media is so horribly swayed now, if you look at this back from 1971, we were split like three ways: independent, Republican, Democrat. It was pretty evenly divided. Look at where we are today. And by the way, I will say that 51% that says that they are independent, they are Democrat. There's no actual independence in the media anymore. There's some. I won't say there's none. There's such a small number of people that play middle of the road. But 3.4% of the media are actual Republicans or conservative. Everybody else is independent or Democrat. The media plays a significant impact in this, but also the teachers. We have an entire education system where you have teachers like this.
Seems to really trigger a lot of snowflakes. And yes, I am your worst nightmare. So let's get one thing clear. If you have a problem that I have this flag in my classroom, stop following me right now. Just block me. Or better yet, leave a comment so I know who I can block. Because I will never stop supporting the rights of all individuals to be loved for who they are. And yes, I do teach about stuff like this in my classroom. Thank you for asking. I teach about Marxism. I teach about socialism. I teach about trans rights. I teach about LGBTQ history.
So the way I compare this, and by the way, I've got about a half a dozen videos here. I'm not going to go through all of them because I'm already running up on the end of my time. But what I've done is, or what has happened, is that these teachers, these militant teachers, have raised up militant kids, and now the entire system has become a self-licking ice cream cone. So this angry kid right here, who's now teaching future kids, is creating future angry kids who are going to be teaching other kids. This is the self-licking ice cream cone of the indoctrination factory. This is why we have these angry kids, like the girl who's willing, as opposed to having a conversation, is willing to pull out her breast and show it to the world just to try to get a video banned, and why parents need to be homeschooling kids. But this is how we've gotten to this level of insanity. This is what we are trying to upend. This is what we are trying to fix, because this is more than just politics. This is culture, right? We're in a cultural revolution and a culture war right now. And it's impacted every aspect of our society, to include our military. I mean, this is something that they're bragging about now. The Navy commissions its first co-ed submarine. So now we're sticking men and women in I don't know what submarines are made out of, titanium steel tubes in the bottom of the ocean for weeks or months on end, and saying, how dare you, when the women come back pregnant. This happened on aircraft carriers and other things. That becomes more important than creating a lethal fighting force. It's all about having a co-ed submarine. There's something to tout. How about we get our F-22s operational? And we're at less than 30% of our F-22s being operational. How about we worry about that? Our ability to maintain air superiority. But no, we're worried about sticking men and women in tubes as a social experiment and sending them out in the middle of the ocean for months on end. Good gracious. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention, this is a kind of a warning to everybody. It's something that we need to be aware of. This video is entirely fake. It is entirely fake. But I want you to look at the exposure, and I'm going to tell you what some of these comments were. This is a video of Gavin Newsom. And I don't know who Brendan Dilley is. I'm assuming he's... on its surface, there's no way for anyone to tell that this was a spoof, other than the ability to recognize AI video. But he said Gavin Newsom has promised to arrest people for deep fake political memes. Definitely don't share this video of him endorsing President Trump. Now, I get that this was a meme. From context, I get that this was a meme and that this was meant to be funny. But all of the comments on this video
that some may think or believe is unheard of. Yes, the news reports are correct. I, Gavin Newsom, am here to endorse none other than Donald J. Trump for President of the United States.
Okay, obviously this was a meme, but the comments were not. The comments were reading this as if it was actually true. And you can say, yeah, I get it. People should be allowed to make AI videos if they want to. I think we need to have watermarks and things like that because we get into some dicey territory. But the comments were, all about how, oh, I can't believe that this is unbelievable. I'm retweeting this. Oh, this is great. It's about time that the Democrats try. I mean, this was the type of feedback that people were having. They thought it was real. We have got to be careful about what we see, about what we post on social media. We can't be flippant with it. We have to make sure that things are real. This is the difficult circumstance that we are in. Be careful about what is out there, because yes, some of it is meant to be comedy. Some of it is because it's low resolution video. You might not be able to tell that it was AI. But we have to be careful about the information that we are consuming. We have to be careful about what we are sharing, and just know that there are people out there that are wanting to deceive us. Even though this is meant to be funny, a lot of people didn't read it that way. They read it as if it was fact. So be cautious. Be cautious, my fellow Americans. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. And if you made it this far, you're definitely going to want to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you. God bless America.